Not many people have the opportunity of getting to go to their finding place. I remember, driving, in the van as we were approaching, just taking it in, like, is it gonna be here or is it there? And we eventually turned down this, narrow alley, and we started to drive, towards her finding spot. And when we got to the gate, our guide just turned around and said, this is where it was. It was really hard just knowing that.
Yeah, I think it was challenging because, you think of a mother that had to leave her child there, and you try to process that and just think about what she went through. She obviously cared for her because she left her with a blanket, she left her with formula, so we know she cared for her.
My name is Dave Peters, and I'm the director of this film we're calling The Finding Place. The idea of this film came to us a few months ago. We had produced a short film for our friends Nate and Jen, who adopted a daughter from China named Haley. We posted the short film up on YouTube, and so far it's gotten nearly 25,000 hits, so we thought we're really onto something here. And as we explored the world of adoption, it seemed like there was a story that really needed to be told.
My name is Kathy Peters, and I'm co-producer of The Finding Place. For several years, I conducted home studies and post-placements for families adopting from China. I know the adoptive parent side of the story, but what about those that gave up their children, the orphanages and foster care that take care of these children? We know so little about their stories. There's this intense human drama unfolding every day all over China, and again, we know so little about it.
We plan to follow 3 families that have adopted children from China as they journey back to make discoveries about the finding place of their children, but also their subsequent care. We want to learn more about the foster care system, these orphanage workers that are so committed to the process of caring for these children until they're picked up and received by the American families. And we want to discover more about really what's behind why so many children are given up for adoption in China. We're going to pick up the story with Nate and Jen, and this time follow Jen as she travels back to China to make discoveries about Haley's finding place and the orphanage where she was cared for.
It was a surreal moment. Yeah. She walked in with her nanny, and she had a very solemn, serious, look on her face. And
what's going on?
Yeah, couldn't figure it all out. And we walked over to her, and I just started rubbing her back and, handed her. We had a little baby doll that her grandma had sent over, and we showed her little baby, and she did touch that. And then they handed her to me first, and I, held her, and she kind of arched her back and started screaming. And
I took her out in the hallway, and when we were walking out in the hallway, we passed her nanny, and her nanny was out in the hallway just bawling and crying and sobbing. This nanny had taken such good care of her, and
loved her, yeah.
And loved her.
We are so excited that I will have this opportunity to go and see where her mother had to leave her that day. And the other thing we're going to be able to do is be able to go back to her orphanage, and I'll get to see where she grew up for the first 2.5 years of her life and get to meet some of the nannies, and sometimes they're called ayis. We'll get to actually see them and meet them and get to see some of the children that probably are still there that she grew up with for those first couple of years.
When we filmed this sequence, I was moved to tears. I had thought very little about these caretakers. We tend to stereotype the Chinese as unemotional, maybe a little cold, but the truth is, they're no different than we are. They form mother-child bonds with these children. And the good news is, we actually have been given permission to film for a few days in Haley's orphanage.
We also plan to travel to China with an older adoptive child. a person who wants to be able to reconnect with her country and the roots and go to her finding place, and also specifically meet her foster parents. We really want to understand and celebrate the foster care system in China, and we want to do that as one of the story elements in the film. The final narrative in our storyline will be to follow a family through the adoption process, including the trip to China. We want to work very closely with the adoption agency and get permission to be able to film really both sides of it, so we can go to the orphanage before their child is picked up and be able to intercut that with their arrival and the day in which they pick up their child. All three of these story elements that we've told you about, we're going to weave together and intercut between them as the stories progress, but all of these stories will end where it all began, and that is at the finding place. So thanks for watching this, and we hope that you'll consider supporting us as we try to tell this great story.